Hope it is visible to all of you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's clearly visible.
Right, thank you. So, should I start or should I wait for some people to join?
No, sir, you can start, sir. Please, you may start.
Right, the topic that has been assigned to me is teaching strategies to make the classroom more interesting and active learning. So, when we talk about that, we think of effective teachers we have had over the years with a sense of recognitions. But those who have touched our humanity, we remember them with a deep sense of gratitude. So this quote itself summarizes the importance of teachers, not only in teaching context, but the society as a whole. So, we think too much about effective methods of teaching, but not enough about effective methods of learning. So teaching and learning, these are just two sides of the same coin. So both are very important from the academic point of view. So therefore, we will look into both these concepts, how to make our teaching more interesting and how to make our learning more meaningful. And what are the ways and means that one can make use of while delivering lectures, classes, and interactive sessions, both inside the classroom as well as of the classrooms. So there are potential benefits of using presentation graphics in today's time. People often talk about how the PowerPoint presentations can attract the motivation of the students so that you can impart meaningful lessons in the classroom, like increasing the visual impact, improving audience focus, providing annotations and highlights, analyzing and synthesizing complexities, enriching curriculum with interdisciplinary approach, increasing spontaneity and interactivity, and increasing wonder or surprises. So these are what we call the different aspects of making your classroom teachings more interesting and attractive in terms of learning. But when we talk about the traditional method of teaching, so let's just spend a few minutes on this concept of traditional method of teaching, what are its strengths and weaknesses. Then we will talk about the modern methods of teachings and how to make the teaching learning process more interesting and active. The first one is teaching must include two major components. One is sending and receiving information. So communications plays a very important role in the process of classroom teachings. When the teacher delivers some things and if the students do not receive it properly or meaningfully, the purpose of teaching is defeated. So therefore, any communication methods that serve this purpose without destroying the objective could be considered as innovative methods of teaching. The benefits of innovative methods talks about improving the learning process and strengthen the governance. But when you look at education as a whole, many experts, they talk about, education means the all-round development of an individual. Swami Vivekananda once upon a time said that education is the manifestation of the perfection already in a man. We need to invent and discover it. So, to summarize it, that education always aim at adding values and virtues to human life. But when you look at today's classroom, our students in the classrooms, they are not students. And when you talk about the time of M.K. Gandhi and Swami Vivekananda, they are not students of our generations, where they just sit down and listens. I think things have changed drastically now. Today you will find students sitting in the classroom with laptop, computers, smartphones. They are always on, busy in doing some or other activities. Sometimes, they want to explore, but at the same time, they are also busy in cut and paste. So, are these technological innovations has made the classroom more enjoyable, more interesting, more motivating and impactful than the earlier method of teachings, when the teachers were emphasizing mostly on chalk and talk. So when I say chalk and talk, the chalk is used in the context of blackboard, using blackboards. So the pre-technology education context, the teacher is the sender or the source. The educational material that is delivered is the information or the message. The student is the receiver of the informations, and the delivery medium is what we call chalk and talk methods. Sometimes, then gradually people started using the overhead projectors, because there are also issues people find with chalk and talks. When you use blackboard methods, maybe the people sitting at the back, maybe if the classroom size is large in number, probably the last bench students may not be getting the clear picture of what is happening on the blackboard with the help of chalk and talks. So therefore, the technology came into existence, what you call, started using the projector or overhead projectors by using transparencies. So making the classroom materials more visible to the participants in the classrooms. So in such a lecture, students assume a purely passive role, and their concentrations maybe sometimes speeds up after 15-20 minutes if the teacher is only busy in talking and writing something on the blackboards. So therefore, the message is louder and clear that only chalk and talk may not help the teachers to make the classroom more interesting and impactful. So what are the limitations here? The teaching in the classroom using chalk and talk is just like a one-way traffic, or what we call one-way flow of informations. The teachers often continuously talk for an hour without knowing students' response and feedback. The materials presented is only based on the lecture notes and textbooks. So there is insufficient interaction with students in the classroom. So therefore, more emphasis has been given on theory without any practical and real life situations. Learning from memorizations has been emphasized, but not understanding. So these are, some of the limitations of what we call the traditional methods of learning and teaching, or teaching and learning. So now the question is how to overcome these limitations. Is the classroom only meant for sharing the bookish knowledge? Is the classroom meant for teaching or feeding students with a lot of information? Is the classroom only meant for building a memory storage within the minds of students in the classrooms? The answer is negative. So therefore, we must look into some other way around to how to make or impact meaningful and impactful lessons in the classroom by the help of modern means, or what we call the innovative methods of teachings. So Confucius once upon a time said, that the empires of the future are the empires of the mind. So if you can map the mind properly, sorry, this is what Winston Churchill talked about, the empires of the future are the empires of the mind. So therefore, if you look at the mind and control it and impart active relations, probably you can explore more into the domain of, one's understanding. But Confucius once upon a time said that I hear and I forget, but when I see, I believe. When I do it, I understand completely. So therefore, the chalk and talk is, has been, not in the forefront of teaching learning processes, although it has been in a great practice for a long time. But the real impact of teaching is seen when it is practiced, when it is active is best. So therefore, when you talk about active learning, so the learning should be full of actions and involvements. So nowadays people are using multimedia mode of delivering lessons by various means like PowerPoints, video recordings, motion pictures, animations, making use of audio, still pictures, text, videos, etc. So now the purpose of using all these things is how to attract the attention of the students and how to create more and more interest in the minds of students so that a clear message is communicated to the learner. So if you look at the traditional and the multimedia learning, so the multimedia learning seems to be an interactive process of learning. But if you look at the chalk and talk methods, it seems to be one-way flow of learning. One person is just keep on talking. And the entire class is just like passive listener. The teacher never tried to understand whether whatever he's talking in the classroom has an impact or going into the minds of the students or not. But when you display certain lessons or deliver certain lessons through multimedia modes, here what happens, both the teacher, students, and the teaching aids of the multimedia, they all are interacting with each other. So now the entire system is bringing into an interactive learning process. So over the years, it has been observed that the multimedia learning has been more meaningful and impactful than the traditional methods. One famous educational expert, Tony Buzan, in the year 1960s, invented one method of delivering active learning or innovative learning, what we call the mind map. So it is called as the innovative way of delivering teaching lessons in the classrooms. So what is it all about? It is a process of making notes with keywords and images through visual and sensory tools at our disposals. It involves recollect information for a long time. So mind mapping is basically an extremely valuable technique to be learned and used by the students in learning processes. As a note-taking technique, the mind map allows individuals to organize facts and thoughts in a map format containing a central image, main themes, radiating forms of central images, branches with key images and keywords, plus branches forming a connected nodal structure. So therefore, we talk about that, the sum of parts, taken together, it will create the whole process. So in addition, the mind map helps students to assimilate new information and ideas, to think and to develop their conceptual schema. Schema means a knowledge base. So this is an example of the mind map for the scalar quantities. So if you look at the other branches, how they you have this sum of the parts have been assimilated into understand the scalar quantities. So that helps. That helps just like creating a brainstorming in the minds of students and thinking from multiple perspectives. So the mind map talks about generates or storm into the brain of students to generate ideas while understanding a particular concept or phenomenon. So we'll explore more into the different domains, how it helps out. But when you talk about the best teachers are those who make learning fun. So how to create fun or humor in the classroom is also a very, very difficult task. So for like laughter. Laughter is a natural and universal phenomenon with beneficial effects, both physical and psychological. And it creates a lot of feelings. And a sense of humor, cordial relationship, creating with the students or among the students. It also involves ability to relax people and reduce tension. You know, many times I used to ask questions in the classroom, very simple questions. Even if, you know, the classroom is full of intelligence, and I ask them, how many of you are intelligent? You know, asking these kind of questions in technological institutes like IIT and IIMs creates a lot of surprises and wonder in the minds of students, knowing fully that they are the best mind in the country. But still, when I ask these questions, I used to observe pin drop silence everywhere. What could be the reasons? Knowing fully that all are intelligent, but still I ask these questions. Is there any relevance? Have you ever explored these things in your class? Have you ever asked to your school students, are you an intelligent student? Any one of you? As teachers? So whenever I ask these questions, so many people, most of them remain silent. Why the teacher is asking such a questions, knowing fully that the entire class is highly intelligent people. But is there any relevance of asking these questions in the classroom to the students? Any teachers? Any one of you? Have you ever tried to ask these questions to your students? Hello, anybody? Can anybody volunteer to respond to these questions? Chauhan Sahab, I think are teachers free to respond to my questions or not, or they have been mute? So yeah, I was just trying to make it interactive by some question answers.
All are allowed, sir.
All are allowed? Right.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, right. So anyway, I think people are not feeling good to interact at this moment. But yes, I used to get answers very lukewarm response when I ask, are you intelligent? So some students says, sir, what is the relevance of asking these questions? So many times, when I just wanted to know the level of their confidence. So many times you have a lot of knowledge, a lot of informations, but if you are not taking the initiative to make use of the resources that is available to you, probably that will go wastage. So therefore, the ability to respond or to face the situation is very important and an indication of intelligence itself. So some people say, yes, we are intelligent. Then my next questions I used to ask them, how do you know that you are intelligent? It's a very simple question. How students know that he or she is intelligent? Because in Indian systems, we never pay attention to the psychological assessment of assessing personality, intelligence, motivation in the classrooms, neither in the school days nor in the colleges. So, but the systems in the Western scenario is very difficult. Is very different. So, because the psychological aspects relate to the growth of the intellectual domain of the persons, the emotional domains of a persons. So there's the social domain of a person. So therefore, continuous assessment is being carried out. So therefore, a Western students or a student who have been educated in Western setup can say very well that I am intelligent or I know my intelligence score. But in India, very rarely the students know about their intellectual level because they never undergo any kind of intelligence test. If you ask what kind of person you are, they will only just guess, but they cannot exactly tell what is their personality because they have never undergone any personality test. So this kind of assessment is very important in addition to studying mathematics, science, geography, history, etc., etc. So therefore, many times, if you ask the same question to the topper of the class, the students sometimes they smile, they gaze at the teachers, why the teacher is asking, I am the topper of the class, but still the teacher is asking whether you are intelligent or not. So, but the teacher is asking for different reasons. Even if you have topped the batch, so academic excellence is not just the only marker of human intelligence. How quickly you respond to the environmental situation is also a marker of his intelligence. How quickly you solve a problems is also a marker of intelligence. How quickly you react to different situations is also marker of or sign of one's intelligence. So that is why intelligence is not only about having, a lot of academic knowledge or information in one particular domains. So you should behave also intelligently in different situations. And that is how many people, don't have even sense of humor. They are very serious teachers. You will find being all the time serious in the classroom is very infectious. It only creates seriousness in the classrooms and the students may not pay attention. So therefore, in order to make students at ease and a really relaxed mode, to create a comfort zone, a teacher has to create a little bit of fun, a little humor, a joke. A simple joke can also create a lot of relaxation in the classrooms. So when the teachers only engage in, serious business, that will only create tension in the minds of students in the classroom, nothing else. So therefore, creating humor, making use of relaxation therapies, building cordial relationships, students will help the students to get close what the teacher actually, trying to impart what kind of lessons to them, and they can very well understand. And they'll be free to ask questions. Otherwise, in Indian in typical Indian classroom situations, whether it is school or colleges or universities, students are always afraid of asking questions to the teachers. And that is the main point why the entire classroom session goes one-way traffic. So therefore, it is very essential. It is one of the biggest ability of a teacher to create humor and getting close to students to understand their mindset, their attitudes, their behaviors, so that they can feed the right kind of information at the right moment. Another is advertising strategies, use of cartoons. When there is a willingness to change, there is hope for progress in any field. So students enjoy humor in form of funny anecdotes. So therefore, use of humor is very, very essential in the classroom, making the classroom more engaging. And there is another approach, what we call Z to A approach instead of A to Z approach. So the Z to A approach always talks about the application part of a particular concept. Say for examples like, say, let us talk about cricket, because cricket is very popular in India. You know, cricket can be understood in terms of three things: batting, bowling, and fielding. So let's talk about batting. So there are different kinds of batting. Straight drive is one way of playing it. Defensive. So each way of playing cricket has its own strength and weakness. So when defensive game is important and when hitting the shot is important, that will decide whether the batsman or the team is going to win or lose. So when the coach teaches the player how to play the bouncer ball and how to play the spin balls. So each concept has its own applications and limitations. So when you talk about being defensive all the times, playing defensive, any balls on the pitch may lead to get slow round rates. There is every possibility that the team will end up with a very low scoring and likely to lose the match. But when you start playing free shots, how to play free shots and how to play loose shots and how to play, hit shots. So there are different mechanisms are used. So accordingly, the coach instructs the player to make use of a particular techniques in a particular times. So therefore, so each has its own strength and weakness. So similarly, in every theory, the teacher has to maximize its impact by telling the application part. So that is what we call the strengths. It makes a particular concept more clear. Students develop interest to know exactly what is the concept and what are its practical usefulness. And that will help to create long-lasting memory and correlations of a concept. So when the teacher starts telling the application parts, the students might be engaged in doing some activity and tests its real applicability in real life situations. So therefore, the application part adds more active learning lessons. But the weakness is that it takes quite a long time for teachers to introduce a concept and put them into practice. The initial difficulty in understanding a particular concept will be, encounter certain difficulties. But in terms of learning, it has maximum impact when you establish the practical applications of a particular concept. So like, say for examples, this is, otherwise you call it simulations methods and experiments on falling objects. So you can also bring into your classroom this kind of exercises. So what is it all about? So this is a concept simulations. It reenacts Galileo's experiments of two different objects falling at the same rates. So it's all about our experiment proves the experimental hypothesis is correct that two different sized objects fall at the same rate. This is because the rate of accelerations of an object in a field of force or gravity is independent of the objects of mass if you ignore wind resistance. So this is just one example I am quoting. Maybe there may be a lot of examples, like in business case studies. We also create simulation methods. We will make use of simulations. And another also mnemonics, words, word approaches, role playings, and scenario analysis based teachings are also equally important. Like when you teach the value of ethics in real life situations, you ask a group of students to play certain roles. Like stealing. Is stealing ethical in real life situations? What are the implications and applications of these concepts in the classroom? Copying from others in exams and telling them the ethical consequences. So this is what we call the classroom situation activities can be carried out to clarify the doubts or the complexities of the concepts and communicate a better understanding to the students. So role play is nothing but asking the students display certain behaviors that is required in certain situations. So what happens here? You can clarify the concept. You can convey the meaning of the concept and its associated meanings or its implications for other concepts. It increases the word powers, the vocabularies, etc., etc. So when you make use of various words and word approach. But in case of role playing, you are actually bringing down how that particular thing is applicable in a real life situation. So it has a practical values and it is supplement. The theory supplemented by practical gives better understandings and the impact is more long lasting. So therefore, it can better remember in the minds of students than anybody else. So that is why many times we say that learning by doing is thousands times better than learning by listening. So therefore, the action learning or the activity-based learning is always better than silent learning. So if you look at other methods, we have been using in the regular classroom from time to time, games people play, learning by doing, and many times we also make use of, whatever theory you are teaching in the classroom, prepare some questions, maybe subjective type or objective types. If it is objective types, you want to test and make the students involved in some or other form of activity. You can prepare some structure exercises or certain quiz test. There are many teachers, they are making, use of storytelling methods. Like say, for example, when we teach management lessons, say for example, leadership. So you can very well tell the story of successful leaders in their lives. Like when I talk about technological leadership in the context of leadership while teaching to engineering and technology students, I used to quote the success story of APJ Abdul Kalam. So how the man led India to make India self-reliant in defense-related technologies. Why he is known as the missile man of India? what is his success stories and how he led his team to achieve milestones in missile technologies, in space technologies. So when you give examples of successful leaders by sharing in the method of storytelling, it will create motivations, it will create zeal, it will create interest in the mind of your students that yes, one day I will also want to be like that man and I will do something concrete. And many times we also create use of case studies. A particular incident has happened and taking that into considerations. So like why some industries are more successful than others. So each industry has its own success stories in terms of its leadership, in terms of its kind of management philosophy, in terms of its success and failures. So why, and in terms of the particular kind of approach that a team leader uses to lead its team to the success. So when you analyze the entire case and ask the students to answer certain questions from that case study, will involve them completely in the entire classroom activities. And gradually after understanding the case, say for example, simply, sometimes I used to ask them, what is your opinion about, dowry systems in India? How many of you want to take dowry after your graduation or when you get married? This is the popular notions, that exist in still Indian mindsets. Even if you are living in the 21st centuries, but still the concept of dowry exists in the mind of Indians. Still, there are a lot of stereotypes and discriminations. So you can bring into some sort of social issues, political issues, religious issues, and you can just throw open-ended questions. The value of putting an open-ended question is that it will create unlimited impact in the minds of students to explore different possibilities, how to answer towards it. Because there is not a single specific answer to the questions. When you talk about what do you think about the current political situations of India, or if you ask the questions about how do visualize the leadership of your current prime minister in the current pandemics, how he has handled the country in terms of international relations. So there will be many ideas. Some will talk in favor, some will talk in disfavor. So at the end of the discussion, you will draw certain conclusion by summarizing the plus point and the negative point. So here what happens, teacher acts as a moderator, just facilitate. So teacher is not just there to deliver teaching. Teacher acts as a mentor. Teacher acts as a facilitator. Teacher acts as a guide. Teacher acts as a supervisor. So there are many roles being played in the classroom just to make the classroom learning interesting, impactful, and meaningful. Another method what we talk about what is creative problem solving. In my classroom, just to check the problem solving ability of the students irrespective of their domains, whether somebody is a science students, engineering students, management, or social sciences. I used to carry out from time to time certain problem solving activities. Say for example, out of such activities, one is called tower building. I put them under different groups, group 1, 2, 3. And in each group, you may have 5 to 10 students. You can give them some creative activities to carry out. Say for examples like tower building, simple exercise with a lot of brainstormings. Many ideas will come out of it. So what is this tower building? give them certain piece of papers, staplers, pins, etc., cardboards, and ask every group to build up a tower. And tell them the tower will be judged in terms of its height, its sturdiness, and its utility, and its aesthetic values. Then you will get to know at the end of the tower the kind of competition or the competitive spirits that comes out of the activities. So when you say that the tower will be judged in terms of its height, which one is the highest level of tower, and when you talk about the aesthetic values, that will bring into the architectural value of the tower. And when you talk about the utility, the tower should not be built at randomly. So here, the real intelligence is brought into the forefront of one's creativity. That is, if the group is preparing a particular tower, how useful will be that tower? So that will what we call the application part of the theoretical knowledge of that group that is being reflected in the tower. So if the utility of, along with the height and the sturdiness and the strong, how strong is the tower, that is what we call the sturdiness. The sturdiness, the height, the aesthetic values, and the utility. So these 4 criteria are used for judging a tower. At the end of the tower, you will get to know the views of each group. Ask the students to decide who will present the views of your group at the end of the tower. And you will get to know the wonderful ideas coming out of that exploration of the activity. So I do also like to all of you to make use of this exercise in your classroom, irrespective of the topics. If you find that the students are getting bored and you are not able to keep their motivations, put them certain creative problem-solving activities. Definitely you will find in no moment they are back to their lessons. Yes, many times we use group discussion method also. In group discussion methods, say for example, you give them a topic for discussion. Any topic of your choice or any topic of the subject that you are teaching in the classroom. Divide the classroom into different groups and ask them to deliberate upon a particular topic. Give them a time frame, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of discussions, and then some question answers. You will find plenty of competitive spirits coming up out of that group discussions. And yes, also try to, and rewards. So reinforcement, as you know, that in learning theories, reinforcement creates a big impact in the teaching learning process. Students get to know that they are going to get some reward of giving some marks, or in terms of giving some tag as the best player or the best students in the class. So they will definitely try to contribute maximum in the classroom discussion and activities. So these are some of the ways that we try to make the classroom more engaged, more active, and more meaningful. In addition to, in today's modern times, many modern technologies are utilized. Internet-ready phones, handheld computers, digital cameras, MP3 players, laptops, e-learning platforms. So all these technologies are nowadays used by the teachers in the classrooms to make the classroom more impactful and meaningful. Like say for example, so you need not to go towards the chalk and talk methods in the blackboard or whiteboard. So if you are making use of computers or laptops or different terminals, say for example, so you are trying to give demo of a softwares, statistical softwares. You upload the softwares in everybody's laptops, and in one main terminal you can give demo and ask the students to get into their laptops and technologies nowadays has facilitated a lot to make the learning process more active and engaged. Instead of asking the students, look at my blackboard, this is how it is done. So this will, for the moment, the students will be paying attention, but the moment the teacher goes out of the class, so this is out of sight and out of mind. So therefore, in order to make impactful learning, you have to have engagement. Engage in such a way that they are fully, immersed with their learning systems. The prime goal of teaching learning process is to bring clarity. So clarity is the key in the teaching learning processes. Whatever courses we are teaching in the classroom, so courses are designed keeping in mind with, academic as well as industry requirements. Some of them are specialized. We look at the medium of instructions as per the course needs. So what are the course needs and what are the students' needs? So these two are very, very important, and a teacher has to keep in mind always. So what are the course requirements? Course requirements is not just teach the theory that is in the book. The teacher has to also tell them what are the applications, what are the industry requirements, what are the specialized field, and what medium should be used. On the other side, the students need. How do you know that the students has learned whatever you have taught in the classroom? The best way of knowing about is the evaluation and assessment. So there should be continuous evaluation and assessment in the teaching learning process. Every class, you should have some assessment at the end of the class. If you are not doing any activity based, just refresh their knowledge by asking questions at the end of the class. That what do you learn from this class? Can you tell me? So I used to ask them at the end of the lesson, yeah, tell me what you have learned from today's class in 1 minute. So there are other way of making evaluations, like end of the class. You can have some exercises. You can have some quiz tests. You can have some group discussions. You can have some cross-question sessions. And yes, after evaluation and assessment, judging that what kind of knowledge and information you have imparted to the students, the teacher also need to tell them what is the on-job training impact of the subjects and evaluations. So these are very, very important, innovative ways of communicating a particular idea to the students. As you all know that teacher, the greatest innovators. Anyone who stops learning is old. And whether at 20 or 80, anyone who keeps learning stays young. So that is why many, people always say that a professor or a teacher never retires in his life. Why? Because he keeps learning. So academic is a lifelong learning. So that is why a teacher is the greatest innovator, because the teacher always keeps learning, inventing, exploring new things from time to time. So therefore, we often say that learning never ends. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep imparting new things to your classroom, to your students, to your audience. So to teach is to learn twice. unless until you prepare yourself better before going into the class, you cannot create an impactful teaching lessons in the classroom situation. So therefore, teachers should guide without dictating and participate without dominating. So therefore, dictating and dominating, these are the two side effects of a good teachers. So a good teachers never adopt these two things, two Ds, dictating and dominating. So the moment there are many teachers who says, how dare you to ask me these questions? I have seen that many students complain that the so-and-so teachers, he says that I am a Bhatnagar Audi in my field, in the field of science and technology. How can you ask me basic questions? But this is where you lose as a teacher if you develop this kind of attitude and approach. So therefore, a good teacher, a better teacher, innovators always guide without dictating and without dominating. But we have also observed that the critical factor is not the class size, but rather the nature of the teaching as it affects learning. So therefore, many times you can manage a large or big class, but if the nature of teaching is not interesting, not meaningful, not impactful, no lessons will be imparted to the students. So therefore, a teacher has to be very, very careful while imparting learning and adopting any learning technologies. While going through different, academic portals, I came across there are 8 novel strategies for active learnings. We call it that the reciprocal learnings. I would like to share this one. Just give me 1 second. Okay, anyway, that is, I'm not able to show that one. Anyway, I'll share it with you all regarding these 8 novel strategies for active learning. One is reciprocal questioning. So reciprocal questioning is about to encourage an open dialogue in which the students take the role of a teacher to create their own questions about a topic, reading sections or lessons. So what happens here, after covering a topic of your choice in the class or after assigning a reading selections, divide the class into pairs or the groups, small groups, and have students come up with a few questions for discussion with the rest of the class. So the idea is to facilitate the entire process. You can provide students with question stems, which provide a foundation of a questions but it still requires students to think critically about a lesson, a text, or the section of materials by completing the query. Say, for example, say, for examples like there are two kinds of questions. One is comprehension question streams, another is connector question streams. Comprehension streams to be like describe X in your own words. What does Y means? Why is Z important? How could X be used to Y? So this kind of questions, what you call the comprehension question streams. But connector questions are different, like explain how X and Y, or how X and YZ, in what ways are X and Y similar? In what ways are X and Y different? How does X tie in with that we learned before? So this is how, you prepare the questions that we call reciprocal way of questioning. One way you can cover off the comprehension questions, the other way connector questions. So use these question streams to anchor and explore concepts in your course material, helping students investigate a range of new topics and points of views associated with your lessons. And yes, the reciprocal questions can particularly be useful when you are preparing for a test or exam, introducing a new topic or section of course content, discussing reading or writing materials in greater details. The second point is three-step interviews. So what is three-step interviews? A cooperative learning strategy. It is called a cooperative learning strategy. The three-step interview encourages the students to develop active listening skills by quizzing one another, sharing their thoughts, and taking notes. To use the three-step interview process, divide students into group of 3 and assign 3 roles: interviewers, interviewing, and note takers. After all assigning a theme or a topic of discussion, have the students participate in 5-10 minutes interview to discuss what they found to be the key information relating to the topic. So after each interview, have the students rotate roles, keep rotating also, depending on the factors, and including the grade level of your students and their experiences with strategies. You may adjust the length of the time for each interview. So, the three-step interview confers the benefits like helping students learn and apply different question strategies, strengthening students, connect with course materials in a creative and engaging way, producing a sense of accountability with students working together to complete a task or a GRAPS lesson. The third important point is called the pause procedure. Like use the pause procedure to increase strategic pauses into your class lectures and enhance students' understanding of teaching materials. For example, like to use the pause procedure, arrange for pause of 2 to 3 minutes between every 10 to 15 minutes of lecture time. Don't keep on continuing deliver your lessons. So that will bring the classroom into a comfort zone. So during these breaks, encourage the students to discuss or to rework their notes in pairs to clarify key points that is covered during your discussion, raise questions, and solve problems posed by the instructors. So this is how the pause method is utilized in the classrooms. So therefore, it is always advisable for all teachers, after every 10-15 minutes, take a pause, put some questions, explore some ideas, and create some interest in the minds of the students, so that the attention of the students are not diverted and you are on the topic. This is how the teacher can make the classroom situations more interactive and more active. The fourth point is what we call the modest point techniques. So what is that? The modest point technique involves asking the students to write notes on the most unclear and most confusing element of a given homework assignments, lecture, or class discussion. So ask the students to note down that has not been, clarified in the classroom, or they have not understood clearly. So the muddiest point means sample phrasing. What have you found to be the muddiest point so far in these assignments? Suppose you have taught something. Now after end of the class, the next day you are asking the students, well, how far you have understood this concept and how far you have not. What topic do we find to be the least clear? That is, we call it muddy, means a lot of confusion, no clarity, lack of clarity. So what topic do we find to be the least clear? So asking students to write down what they found to be the least clear is a powerful exercise, because it compels them to grade or rate their own knowledge of understanding on a particular topic. So therefore, the fourth point, the muddiest point of technique, is found to be very useful and impactful in classroom situation to make the classroom more active and engaging. Number 5, the devil's advocate approach. The devil's advocate approach asks one or more students to take the opposing side of a predominant arguments or point of view being discussed during a classroom. Suppose you have discussed on a topic and then you ask a group of students, okay, you are now going to take a disfavorable or unfavorable situation or stand, and another group favorable. Unite their minds to engage themselves in more discussions and to find out more points. So once you have completed an assignment, lesson plans, select a topic that is suitable for discussion and debate, and the topic should serve as an appropriate subject for providing arguments from both sides. So when you get to know the positive and the negative sides of the particular phenomena, that will bring better and clear understanding to the students about that concepts and phenomena. So the activity is flexible and should be tailored to suit your students' grade level. In its simplest form, divide the class into 2 sections and coordinate a class-wide debate based on a selected topic. So while this approach can be used across a number of grade levels, 6th grade students, 10th grade students, etc., etc. So at grade level and at subject level, it can be utilized. So consider this list of thematic. So based on different thematic situations, you can make use of these methods in your classroom. So this approach can cultivate active learning in the classroom by encouraging students to think more critically. So this is, this approach is intended to develop critical thinking in the students. So think more critically, that is challenging participants to expand their understanding of the prospective surroundings on an issue and to view it through a different lens. Second, the students become more engaged, fostering involvement by drawing out opinions to explore the complexity of an issue being discussed or studied. And the third point is, it produces a deeper understanding for the students on a particular topic or issues using rigorous analysis, critical appreciations, and collectively they clarify by probing into the domain of discussion and also pose alternatives to problems being discussed. So it has been found to be very, very effective in classroom situations. The sixth point is what you call peer teaching activities. Can a peer of a particular student can teach another students in the same classroom? This is called a flexible and multifaceted approach to active learning processes. So the peer instruction encompasses a range of scenarios where students instruct skills or explain concepts to their classmates. Like in the same classroom, you can ask your students to teach the class on a particular, the same class on a particular issue or topic or phenomenon. So some of the popular notions, it includes reading buddies, like a cooperative learning strategy that pairs two students who work together to read an assigned text, crosses peer tutoring, a peer learning strategy involving students in different grades, wherein which one student instructs another on a material in which the first student is advanced and the second student is novice. So this is very, very useful, where you will find, a different categories of students. Some students are very advanced level or mediocre level, some are moderate level, some are very low level. So therefore, if the students who is at the advanced stage teaches to the students who are at the what you call the mediocre level or the low level or a novice stage, that will benefit the entire class. And yes, role play is another important. A group of students is split into smaller groups and given specific tasks to complete. And you ask those groups to present their ideas to the entire class. So, however, in addition to working on a specific task, the members of each group are asked to play certain roles. Like unlike traditional role models, like you can ask what is each man's contribution to this activity. All members of one group play the same role, not individual assigned roles. So therefore, the peer teaching activities helps boost the vital skills and behaviors, including student interactions, accountability, and group processing. So these are the three advantages of tutoring or peer teaching. One is enhance interaction among students. It will develop a kind of accountability or responsibility within themselves, that they will feel that the teacher has assigned us a job, let me do it. So accountability and responsibility. And third is, it will develop group spirit. We are the team that has been assigned, let's do the best. This is how you can engage the entire classroom. Number 7 says, the 7th point is what we call the game-based learning platform. Like, while developing leadership lessons, we ask the students to go to the field, play sports and games, football, cricket, etc. And we observe their team skills, their leadership skills, their communication skills, conflict management skills, etc., etc. So you can observe on the field performance and give them feedback on their behaviors, skills, and competencies. But in classroom situations, also game-based learning platforms can be created. It adds depth and differentiation to the educational process and allows students to work with their instructors to achieve their learning objectives. So the game-based learning actually is used mostly in mathematical games. There are many websites nowadays that are also available where The game-based learnings can be adopted by many teachers from time to time in their classroom. It is really about how students use devices to create artifacts of learning that demonstrates conceptual mastery through relevant applications and evaluations. And the last but not least, what do you call the rotating chair group discussion? The rotating chair group discussion means it encourages students to actively listen to selected speakers who follow a pattern of guiding class discussion and summarizing previous points. So students lead and stimulate class discussions as they rotate roles, repeatedly selecting the following speakers. So I often also ask the students in my class. So after each class is over, when I come back to the next day in the next class, I invite students to volunteer themselves and act as a dummy teachers and teach them what they have learned and teach the entire class. And students lead and stimulate class discussions in this kind of exercises. So to use this strategy effectively, please ensure that students adhere to the following patterns. Like when a student wishes to participate, they must raise their hands. The students who is speaking calls on the next speaker, ideally someone who has not yet contributed. And the student who has been called upon briefly summarizes what the previous student said before developing the idea further. So this way, the entire process can be repeated across a variety of topics with the guidance of the teachers, so that to stay on the track and help students don't stop in any particular point. So these are some of the active learning methods that the teachers can make use of in his or her classrooms to make the classroom more interesting, meaningful, impactful, and educative. So the rotating chair group discussion method has been also found to be very effective and considered as a novel strategies for active learning. So with this, now I conclude these sessions and thank you all for your kind patience and listening. If there are any questions, we can take up. Thank you very much.